When you partner, and this is the big thing, when you partner with one of these processing companies, they will say, okay, we are going to charge 2%. So every time someone gives to a church, we're going to take 2%. How much do you want to take? And these giving companies will say, oh, we get to take a percentage? Well, we were just going to charge $30 a month or whatever. You pay your website provider $30 a month, or you pay ProPresenter $300 a year. I don't know. We can charge a percentage? Sure. We'll say it's a blended cost. It costs 3% to process gifts. You'll get 1, and we'll take 2.
I saw recently you're kind of getting, I don't even want to call it beef, a little tiff with some other people in this industry whenever it comes to online giving and kind of what these other platforms do. Go ahead and explain, walk me through that, because I was trying to keep up, and I wish, one thing I do like about Facebook is you can comment GIFs, and I know I still use GIFs. I guess I'm showing my age. And if there's an argument, people will post the GIFs of the guy eating popcorn. That was me under your post going back when you guys were going back at it. So explain that situation for the listeners.
Okay, so if you Google Ultimate Guide to Church Giving, you should find my video on this and my blog post. The blog post is thousands of words. The video is 33 minutes. And I made those 2 resources as the definitive guide and explanation on this. Yeah. Because it is extremely challenging to succinctly recap, because it involves a lot of math. And when math is involved, it's not especially interesting to a lot of people, but it also can be difficult to grasp.
Gotcha.
But I will try to summarize here.
Yeah, give us a recap, TLDRs.
For sure. So anytime a financial transaction occurs digitally, whether it's online, you're buying something on Amazon, or you're swiping your credit card at a restaurant, there is an intermediary between your bank and the person that you're giving money to that basically exists to make sure that transaction is secure and everything goes where it's supposed to be. They manage disputes. They make sure that refunds happen. They make sure everyone's not getting their credit cards ripped off. Okay. And because that's such a huge job, they will take usually 1% to 2% of that transaction. And this is why, when you go to a convenience store, sometimes they'll be if you're not spending $5, you can't use your credit card, or we'll charge you to use it. Because a convenience store, maybe their margins are already so slim, you pay $4 for gummy candies, they lose 25 cents plus 3% to fees, and suddenly it's our margins that were so slim already, they're non-existent. Now, in a for-profit business, you can consider those margins and build them into your costs. So at Nucleus, we know every single person that pays us uses a credit card or a digital card of some kind. And so we're going to lose 3% for every single dollar that we earn. And we know that, and it's on our expenses list. If you are a church, not-for-profit, you can't raise prices. Yeah. And so these fees become a really big issue, especially when a global pandemic pushes online giving to heights that it had never before reached. But here's where things get really insidious. So this intermediary that manages the financial transactions, they are companies that you have probably never heard of. They are these giant, huge financial companies that manage all of these terminals, and they work with all the credit card companies, but they're mostly nameless. What a church giving company will do, like mine, Nucleus Giving, like Tithely, like Subsplash, like PushPay, like any of these, is that they will partner with one of these financial giants and then build the online giving app in conjunction with them. So our online giving platform, it'll help you manage recurring giving, and you can create giving funds, and it's this nice giving form to give to your churches, and you can run reports and manage admins and issue giving receipts. But we're not the ones in charge of making sure that the transactions are secure and encrypting through all that. We basically, once that happens, we pass it over to these processing giants, and they do their thing. Yeah. When you partner, and this is the big thing, when you partner with one of these processing companies, they will say, okay, we are going to charge 2%. So every time someone gives to a church, we're going to take 2%. How much do you want to take? And these giving companies will say, oh, we get to take a percentage? Well, but we were just going to charge $30 a month or whatever. You pay your website provider $30 a month, or or you pay Pro Presenter like $300 a year. I don't know. Like, we can charge a percentage? Sure. We'll say it's a blended cost. It costs 3% to process gifts. You'll get 1, and we'll take 2. And it sounds inconsequential, and it's the reason why giving companies are often able to say, our giving platform is free, $0 per month. Except, the kicker is, we will take 1%, at least often 1.5, of every single gift your church receives in perpetuity with no cap. And what this results in, and we have these numbers from publicly traded giving companies in the church world that have tens of thousands of churches using them, is you might pay $29 a month for your website provider, and you pay on average thousands, 4 figures a month, to accept online giving. And that's just the 1% that these online giving platforms are taking. Not the 3%. There's still 2% going to the actual processor that actually has to handle all the secure stuff. And there are a ton of different fallouts from this. One is that when these giving companies are swimming in cash, they just start buying up other companies. So CCB gets acquired by PushPay, and Elvanto gets acquired by Tithely, and Ministry Brands is a conglomerate of 13, 15, 25 different brands, and they get venture capital from outside the church space because they're like, wait a minute, you found users that will pay you for a platform you never cancel, because who cancels their giving provider?
Yeah.
And they need to use you. They have to use you because they have to accept online gifts.
A lifetime.
And
retention.
most most donations in America that are charitable go to churches, and you get them to give you 1% of every gift. It is like an unheard of tech software money pit. And so you have outside capital that's give these giving companies millions and millions and millions so that they can one day sell for billions. All on the back of church donations. And it's a tricky thing to talk about, Brady, because on the one hand, once I found out this was happening, because I regrettably did not know for a while, we were like, okay, well, let's build a giving solution because we have the resources to do so, where we will just never take rev share. And that's the word that this is called. It's called rev share.
Yeah.
We're just never going to take it, ever. And when you do that and talk about this, it comes off as self-serving. Well, Brady, you're talking about this because you want people to use your giving platform. But if you talk about it and you don't have a solution, people will say, well, why don't you actually do something about it instead of just saying they're actually they're serving churches. Why don't you actually do something about it? So I recognize the awkwardness or just the stickiness of talking about it. But the math is the math, and we just want churches to know what's happening, be aware of it, and then they can make an informed decision.
No, I get it. And hey, next month we're going to DC and we're going to march for church giving providers and to put a stop
forget
to
DC. We got to go to Silicon Valley and march in Palo Alto.
There we go. There we go. Man, yeah, that's so interesting. I wouldn't have even thought that this is a thing that's happening. And I love that you guys serve churches in a way that is very transparent, because that's one of the things, because I've watched a lot of your stuff about this, and it's one of the things, it's not as bad that it's happening as much as it is that they're trying to hide the fact that it is, and they're just not being transparent about it as far as what that rev share looks like. And I love that you guys have so much transparency in what it is you do whenever it comes to church giving.
And to that end, and probably where you saw these things, was CEOs of other giving companies have not always been pleased with how I have talked about this. Where it's mostly just math and spreadsheets. I try not to be too colorful on the commentary because, again, that can sound more self-serving. It's hey, here's the math. And they'll say, well, that's not really what the math is. And I'm like, well, you won't tell us the math. And they're like, why don't we just talk about this once and for all on a podcast? I'm like, great. You tell me how much your company charges, because I put it on our pricing page, and we can talk about it. And then we can talk about our 2 different profit models, because we're just 2 different ways of charging. I charge a flat fee per month. You charge a percentage model. What is the percentage? Just tell us. And they have never been willing to come on my show or to invite me on their show and actually talk about that. They're always quick to invite, hey, let's talk about it, let's hash it out. But they won't actually say how they charge. And they won't even tell their salespeople. I have friends now that have worked at the company, or maybe not friends, maybe online acquaintances. And they'll say, hey, Braid, that's not really, can you not talk about our company this way? We're trying to help churches. I'm like, cool, man, when a church asks you, how much do you keep of my online gift? What do you tell them? He's like, well, they won't tell us that number. I'm like, okay, so if they're not telling you that number, do you think maybe there's something there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, I'm mostly just trying to lay out the math. I think, now to be fair, I do think that hiding your pricing model and claiming that you charge churches $0 per month when in fact you're keeping thousands of dollars. Like the average price, if I remember, because there's only one publicly traded company that reveals these numbers in full, and that's PushPay, and they have more than 10,000 churches. But the percentages are basically all the same across the board with these companies. They all charge about 3%, and part of that they keep for themselves, part is the processing company. And the more churches you have on your platform, the better rate you can negotiate. And hundreds of millions of dollars are being processed. But on PushPay, it was, I believe, and you can find this in the article, the exact number, it was $1,200 or $1,400 per month average per church. And they have 10,000 churches. So even if you account for like, let's say 50 mega churches use them, that's still 9,950 non-mega churches. So even if you had like churches that had massive amounts of online giving, there just aren't that many mega churches that would be able to skew the numbers that much. Like 90% of churches are 300 or fewer in America, much less globally where, I'm in Canada, we're even smaller here. So that means like the average church losing more than $10,000 a year needlessly for no other reason than a company that was like, yeah, we give you a giving form and that should earn us $10,000 a year. Imagine if ProPresenter was like, hey, you want to use ProPresenter? Just give us 1% of all your tithes and offerings. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely not. Man, it's crazy to hear kind of the behind the scenes and your perspective on this after just kind of seeing from the outside. If you want to check out the full interview with me and Brady Shearer, I will link that down below in the description. And today's video is sponsored by the Plan Your Visit Playbook. If you want more guests coming to your church every single week, then you need to get this book. It is for free down in the description. All you need to do is pay the $8.50 for shipping. You can go to planyourvisitplaybook.com to get your free copy of the book. This book will walk you through step by step how to use the Plan Your Visit strategy and social media to get new guests coming to your church every single week. Get your free copy today.